Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Now today's video is a slightly different one. I thought I would do kind of like a what it actually is like to move to Australia. Does that make sense? What moving to Australia is actually like. Now I've had so many people message me and comment on my TikToks and my YouTube videos just wanting to know a bit about how it actually is, and obviously is it all kind of like sunshines and rainbows as it looks like, or kind of like the real deal, like what it's actually like and kind of what comes with moving away from home and moving your entire life to somewhere around the world. Now like I said, I think this will be quite helpful to a lot of you because I've had, like I said, so many of you ask me questions about finding accommodation, finding a job, meeting new people, what it's like to be away from home for so long. So I thought having all of this in one video might be really helpful for some of you. Now I've just got a few topics that I'm kind of going to talk through, just tell you what my experience has been like, but I just want you to know that obviously everyone's experience is going to be so different. Now this is the second time that I've actually moved to Australia. I lived out in Sydney in 2019 and my experience then was completely different this time around. I'm enjoying myself so much more this time, and it was just so different before, and things I've done are different. The way that I've gone about actually living out here has been completely different. So your experience can be so different. So just because I've had an amazing time, and it doesn't mean that everyone else will, like it is a big thing, it's a hard thing to do, but also vice versa. And just because you might know someone that hasn't had the best experience doesn't mean that you won't either. So you just have to kind of completely go for it. If it's something you want to do, you kind of just have to bite the bullet, go for it, and put yourself out your comfort zone. It is a scary thing to do, completely, don't get me wrong, but it's also the best thing that I've ever done, and it was also the best thing I ever did 3 years ago, but this time round it's just been way more enjoyable and I'm just enjoying myself way more. So I'm not going to do a long intro, I'm just going to talk through some of these topics. It's going to be a lot on kind of like accommodation, finding a job, meeting new people, just kind of like what it's like to actually live somewhere halfway around the world that is so different to back home. A little promo I'm going to do for myself actually. I did write a moving to Australia guidebook probably about a month ago now, and I haven't actually advertised it or put it out there very much, so I will leave the little screenshot and the link down below for that guidebook if you do want to have a little look at purchasing it. It just kind of has a lot more detail, everything summed up. I think it's about 27 pages long, I think, and again it has all the info on the visas, like what visas you have to do, whether you need to do farm work, finding accommodation, jobs, like how I found my job. So that might be really helpful for some of you to have a little look at and read through. And I know a lot of people really love my summer camp guidebook and they found that really helpful, having information like written down for them to be able to read. So like I said, I'll leave that link down below in case you want to have a little look, but without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the video. Okay, first I'm going to talk about is finding a job. Now again, my both experiences have been completely different in terms of finding a job. Both times I have found a job really easily. The opportunities and the jobs out here are very easy to come across, and everyone out here that I've met has kind of said the same thing. The first time I lived out in Australia, I actually got a job within about 5 days of being out here. Again, I lived in Sydney before. I've lived in Sydney both times now, and I ended up getting a job as a fundraiser, and this would have been a really good job if I was mentally prepared for it, but it was such a hard job that I really struggled. The money was good, like I was working Monday to Friday, I had like my evenings, my weekends, but it was just hard, and I think I should have put a bit more thought into what I wanted to do for a job, because the main thing for me is if I enjoy work, I enjoy everything else, and I'm sure a lot of people can say the same. If you're having to spend most days going to work doing something you really don't enjoy and you find really difficult, it's really hard to then enjoy other aspects of life as well. That's what I find. So I ended up only working that job for probably about 4.5 weeks, and then had the time off over Christmas and then went and worked on a banana farm. This was horrendous for me. I did 2 days on a banana farm and left, went back to Sydney. And again, this is why you have to take these things with a pinch of salt, because I know people that have absolutely loved farm work. Like my brother ended up doing 5 months on a farm and he really enjoyed it. He met some of his best friends there. So it really depends on where you go, who you go with, what you end up doing. It just wasn't for me. This time around, however, I'm working a job that I absolutely love. I'm coaching gymnastics, which is something that I've done for like majority of my life now, virtually since I started working at like 15 years old, and I love it. It is such a nice job. I'm working amazing hours, really sociable, and it's just incredible. I found this job on Indeed, the same as my other jobs. The one thing I love about Australia though is that there's so many people that are just willing to help out, especially when it comes to things like jobs and accommodation. Like there's a lot of Facebook groups as well that I really recommend you join if you're thinking of coming out here, and people posting there saying they're looking for work, or people will post job ads, and it's really easy to find work. I find I would just really stress, like try and come out here with an idea of what you'd like to do, or maybe even come out here with a job set up. Like I had my contract signed, I think in around September, and I moved out here in October. So I came out here not to work, but that was a big part. Like the reason I was coming was because I had this amazing job secured. So I personally really liked coming out here, having a job set up and ready to go. Some people prefer coming and having a few weeks, getting yourself settled, deciding where you want to live, and then looking for a job. So it's completely up to you what you want to do. But in terms of finding work, like you won't struggle at all. I do think it's a lot better to try and come out here with work sorted, but it's not always possible, and a lot of places want you to go in for interviews or have like phone call interviews, and if you don't have an Australian phone number it can be difficult. But just maybe have some connections. Like the job I'm currently doing now, I applied for 3 years ago when I first lived here, and unfortunately I couldn't take the job because I was going to do my farm work, and we've just stayed in touch over the past 3 years. They've always said, oh, like if you're ever thinking of coming back to Sydney, let us know. There'll always normally be some hours here, and it's just worked out so well. So making those connections early on, even if it's just you sending an application or an email to a few jobs, it's definitely worth doing. Another thing to mention as well is that if you're thinking of going into construction or bar work, restaurant work, there are a few qualifications that you might need to get beforehand. If you're looking at going into construction, you'll need a white card. I think you can do these either in person or online to get your white card qualification. It's relatively straightforward, and it just gives you the thing to go ahead and work in construction. I don't actually know. And then also, if you're thinking of working in a restaurant or a bar, you will need an RSA, which is kind of just like a qualification to say that you can work handling alcohol. Again, really straightforward to get, but just make sure if you're coming out here relying on getting a job in a restaurant pretty soonish, make sure you've looked into your RSA as well. I don't think it takes long to have them come through, but just make sure you check. Okay, next I'm going to talk about is finding somewhere to live. Now, this is actually comical that I'm sat talking about finding somewhere to live, because I'm yet to actually find somewhere that's permanent for me to live out here. But everything so far has worked out so perfectly for me. I've been so lucky in terms of what I've found and how things have gone. So my first 2 weeks I spent in a hostel. I stayed at the Village Hostel in Bondi, and this place was really ideal. It was perfect for me to just get straight into Bondi, get settled, because Bondi is where I lived the last time I was here. So I wanted to go back to an area that was familiar to me, because I came out here completely on my own. I didn't know anyone coming out here, and it was really close to work. I was able to walk to work in the morning, so that was really ideal. And then a lad I actually met in the hostel my very first night was, he'd already got like a room sorted in a shared accommodation, like a shared house thing, but he decided to go traveling last minute. So I remember he texted me, he was like, oh, like if you want to use my room, like rent my room off me while I'm away, like please do. So I ended up staying with a Scottish couple who are so lovely, and I stayed with them for, I think it was about 3 weeks, and I then just crashed with them for a further week and a half, I think it was. And then I actually ended up moving into the accommodation I'm in now, which is just me house sitting for my manager, who's actually gone on holiday for a month and a half, I think it is. And it's been incredible. Like everything has worked out so well for me. I haven't actively been looking for anything yet, because the market in Sydney at the moment is insane. Accommodation at the moment is really hard to find, and when you are finding it, it's really expensive. So that's the only thing. Like when I lived out here before, things were completely different. It was so easy. We moved into a house the same day that we viewed it. Things were so much easier, and I'm not sure whether it's because this year is really the first year that people have been able to come back to Australia after COVID. So I don't know whether it's that, or, but I don't know. I think I've got about 2.5 weeks left in this place now, and I'm still yet to know where I'm going to live afterwards. But again, join some Facebook groups, download apps like Flatmates and Flatmate Finders are really good apps to help you find like house shares, and you will meet people, and you'll meet people that are wanting to do the same thing. Obviously, like hostels are still really ideal. You meet a load of people, and sometimes you can meet people that want to then look at getting a place together. So there is definitely options. I think at the moment I'm just kind of been like, I'm going to go with it. Whatever happens, happens. I haven't been actively looking for anything, but I'm hoping that the market kind of in the new year levels out a little bit and doesn't get as crazy. At the moment, I don't know where I'm going to be living, which is all fun and games, but that is one thing. But yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say coming out here you will literally find a place within a few days. Some people do. Like I've heard people that have literally found the most amazing place really cheap and they've moved in. It's just hard at the moment. There's just so many people looking for accommodation that I'm struggling. It's hard. But like I say, join these Facebook groups, download some apps, putting posts out in these groups just saying, oh, like I'm looking for a room in a house share, and people will be posting the same thing, saying they're looking for a flatmate, and it does happen and things will work out. And if not, a hostel will always still be there. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about is meeting new people, and I think this is a big worry for a lot of people, especially when you think about coming out here on your own and not knowing anyone. And my first time coming out here, I moved out here with a big group of people. There was probably like 10 people out here that I knew, 10 to 15 people out here that I knew, and I kind of had that group already made. But after coming out here again on my own, I've preferred it so much more coming by myself, because you're able to meet new people for yourself. And I was very closed off to meeting new people before, because I'd got this group already set up. We had like stuff on, like we had plans, like I just kind of kept to this group. Whereas this time around, I've put myself out there, like I've met new people, I've messaged people, I've had people message me about meeting up. So there's so many people out here that are doing the same thing. Like so many people I've met have come out here on their own, not knowing anyone, and they're all in the same boat. I think that's kind of like the beautiful thing about coming and traveling and doing it by yourself, is that there's so many people doing the same, and you meet so many incredible people. Like I've met some amazing people since I've been out here, and that was never really a worry of mine, is coming out here and not knowing anyone or not having anyone, because I've traveled quite a lot, and like even doing like summer camps and doing things like that, like you meet people because the people doing the same things are out here. And there's so many people from the UK, so many Irish, so many people out here, so many people from all over Europe. Like people are doing backpacking, traveling, all of that, so you will meet so many people. And again, like social media, I have found is massive. I posted a TikTok the first day I got here, and it literally just said, anyone move to Sydney and want to be friends? And it kind of blew up, and I had so many people messaging me saying, oh, like I've just moved out here, or I've been out here for a few months, come out with some drinks. Like you meet so many people, so definitely use social media. Like it's massive is what I've realized, and you'll meet so many people through it. Okay, next I'm going to talk about is missing home. Now this is obviously something that will always happen, and will kind of depend on you as a person, like how much you miss home. I can't really say, oh, like you won't miss home at all, because you probably will. I really miss home a lot, especially over the Christmas period. Like it's now the 27th of December, and Christmas is really strange when you're not at home, and it doesn't feel like Christmas here at all. I literally spent Christmas Day on the beach in a bikini in 30-degree heat, and I phoned home and they were like, oh, look, it's freezing. We just cozied up on the sofa watching a movie, and it's just crazy how different it is. And it is hard spending time away from your family, especially at these times. But I've always been extremely lucky that my mum and dad have been so supportive of me just kind of upping and moving and traveling and seeing the world, because they've always loved to travel, and they've allowed me to travel to some incredible places. And they're actually coming out here in March, which is so exciting that they'll be able to come out and experience Australia, because neither of them have been before. But you will miss home, like it's hard, but what I find is nice is that you can still stay in touch. And I find even with the time difference, it matches up quite well over here. We're 11 hours different at the moment, so I find when I'm walking to work in the morning, like I spend like an hour walking to work, and in that time it's like the evening for back home, and I can always call my mum or my dad or speak to friends, and I find it's just still quite easy to stay in touch. But don't let that put you off as a factor if you're worried about missing home too much, because you do adapt and you will settle into new environments. It's very normal for you to feel really homesick the first few days or the first few weeks, but then when you start meeting people and you get settled into living somewhere or working somewhere, it does become so much easier. And it's okay to be scared and nervous. I think people forget that that's a completely valid feeling to have. And I know, especially when I speak to people about doing Camp America, a big thing for a lot of people to ask is, I'm really worried about feeling homesick, about being away from home and like put into such an intense environment. And it's very similar, but those feelings are completely normal. And you coming out and moving halfway around the world, sometimes by yourself or maybe just with a friend, is insane, and it's such an amazing thing that you're able to do, but it is scary. And I remember one person actually said to me before, when I was speaking about traveling and working abroad and living and moving away from home, someone said that they loved that, kind of like how open I was about saying like it's scary and it's worrying and it's nerve-wracking to do. And a lot of people do sometimes sugarcoat it, and they say, oh, it's the best thing you'll ever do, like no worries at all, like you don't need to be scared, like all of that. But it's normal, and those feelings won't go away just by someone saying, oh, like don't be worried, don't be scared. Like I was still terrified coming out here. I remember my mom and dad dropped me off at the airport, and I was literally getting out the car, and I felt sick. I was like, I don't know if this is the right thing. I feel like this is the worst decision. And I remember my mom was like, oh, don't be silly, like come on, you've done this a million times before. And I was like, I know, but it's still low-key terrifying. And I think it's just the unknown and not knowing what's going to happen when you get the other side. But it is also so exciting. But just know that those feelings of worry and doubt and nerves, they're completely normal to have. So don't think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this, I'm not going to go, because everyone feels like that, and it's completely normal. So just try and push through those feelings and understand that it's okay. It's okay to feel like that. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about is deciding what to do next. And what I mean by this is kind of like out here, you for a first year working holiday visa, you get 1 year. And for me, I found such a hard thing is deciding what my next steps are, what I'm going to do after, if I want to travel somewhere else, if I want to stay out in Sydney, what to do next. And again, this is going to completely depend on what your plans are. Some people come out here knowing they're just going to do 6 months of work, 6 months of traveling, and then go on to somewhere else. But when you get out here, things are so heightened and so crazy, and there's so many incredible opportunities that it gets you thinking about other things you can be doing, like whether you actually do want to go home after this or whether you do want to go somewhere else. Like, the life over here is incredible. Like, that's one thing I probably should have said at the start. Australia is an amazing place to live, and the lifestyle I find is like nowhere else I've ever experienced. And I don't know what it is about this place, but like, it's just the energy and the atmosphere and everything is incredible, and I can see myself being out here long term. Especially this time around, I've worked a job that I actually enjoy and I love. It's really hard to think, oh, I'm going to go back home and work like my old job that I did before when it wasn't something I enjoyed as much. It's really difficult, and I'm at a position at the moment where I don't know what to do next. I am at a bit of a crossroads, and again, that's normal, but you kind of have to go with the flow because things change so quickly out here, and an opportunity can come up that you never expected to get, and it's kind of something you have to just be kept on your toes and just go with the flow. But at the moment, I know that I'm going to be out here for another 6 months, and then I'm going back to camp, and then that's from then I'm a bit like, what do I do? I really want to be out here long, like I say, long term, and be working the job that I'm in. But at the moment, the visas and stuff is quite confusing, and there's actually a new ruling coming in with the UK and Australia that you can work out here for 3 years without having to do your farm work, which is amazing. But we don't know when this is coming into force yet. It could be next year or start of 2024, so it's just working out how that could be. I've been offered sponsorship at my job, which is amazing, but I kind of want to wait for sponsorship for a couple of years because that's quite a big deal, and I don't want to rush into sponsorship and then end up thinking, oh, I still want to travel. Like, I want to do loads of Asia, I still want to do loads of Europe. So if you get sponsored, it kind of ties you into the one place for quite a while. So I'm struggling, I don't know what to do. But just kind of know, like, if you are out here and you're not sure what kind of your plans are going to be, just come out here with an open mind and, like I say, go with the flow, because you don't know what opportunities are going to come up or who you're going to meet. You could meet someone that you decide, I want to go and travel everywhere with you, and your whole plans will change. So try and come out here with an open mind and not worry too much about where you'll be or what will happen at certain times. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is snakes and spiders. Now, this is something that I have so many people ask me about, like if I've seen all the snakes and spiders out here, how I actually cope with them, and I'm yet to see, touch wood, anything crazy like snakes and spiders. My friend Sally, she saw the biggest spider in her room. If she can send me the video, I'll insert the video. It was terrifying. This spider was huge, but I'm quite lucky that I haven't seen anything like that. But yeah, in terms of seeing snakes and spiders, I personally haven't seen any, and I do think it's quite a misconception of a country. Like, I know it puts people off from coming to Australia completely, knowing that they think they're going to see snakes and spiders everywhere. And don't get me wrong, they are here and you could see them. Like, don't base that on me not seeing any that you won't, because you could. Who knows? I just haven't at all. When I worked on a farm 3 years ago, it was such a strange place, and like there was like a really open toilet like in this room. It was massive, this room, and it had like a big open window, like just like a hole in the wall. Like, there wasn't even a window there, it was just like a hole, and it was like a swamp right next to it. In the bathroom, it literally said beware of like crocodiles and alligators in the swamp. And I was like, I'm literally going to the bathroom right here and the swamp is there. It was mad. There's some crazy places and you will see some crazy things, but I haven't. I do, obviously, when I want to go traveling like all around Australia and see a lot of Australia, so I'm sure I'll come across some creepy things then. If I see a snake though, I genuinely will cry. Like, snakes terrify me. Spiders, not so much, but I also haven't seen spiders out here and I know they're huge. So probably I'm going to be scared of both, who knows. But yeah, I hope that's kind of given you an idea on what it's like moving to Australia from my perspective, and kind of how I've got on, how I've found jobs, accommodation, like how I've met people, stuff like that. And like I say, hopefully it just gives you an idea on what it's been like for me, and you can get a little bit of an idea on whether you want to do it or not. I would 100% recommend coming and moving to Australia. It's the best thing I've ever done, and like I said, the opportunities out here are incredible. The lifestyle that you get from living out here is amazing. It's just unbelievable. So I would literally recommend it to everyone. I'm trying to persuade so many people back home. I'm like, oh, come out, like you'd love it. And it's a big thing to do, and obviously it's hard. Not everyone can just kind of up and move halfway around the world. Like, I do get that, but if you've been decided between coming out here and you are able to, 100% do it. I did do like a moving to Australia Q&A that I'll leave down below, because I talk a little bit about visas in there, which I haven't actually spoke about too much in this video. Again, let me know if you want me to do a video on kind of like visas, farm work, how you kind of extend your visa and stuff, because I've learned a lot about visas and stuff since I've been back out here, as opposed to before coming. Like, I had no idea about some of the new rulings and stuff, or just some of the new things in place, or just things in place that I had no idea even existed. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do something more on that, if this has given you any idea. I feel like I always do this in my videos. I'm like, have I actually given any useful information, or have I just been chatting rubbish for about 20 minutes? But yeah, I hope it's helped. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.